Welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast. I'm Dr. Charles Small, the Director of Athletics at Valparaiso University. My leadership philosophy is based around stewardship, strategy, and success. I believe that we need to leave our institution better than how we found it. We need to really emphasize this idea of stewardship. We have this responsibility for great, precious resources that the university provides, and that's just not fiscal, it's human resources. Do we implement strategies that emphasize vision, alignment, and execution? And are we really focused on success and those outcomes that are going to help to move the university and our department forward? A lot of my foundation was introduced to me by being a participant in the Dr. Charles Whitcomb Leadership Institute through the NCAA. And it really gave me a foundation to help not only develop that leadership philosophy, but also the skills needed throughout my career that I lean on every day as an athletic director in this industry. We appreciate you joining.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown, and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast, where we highlight executive and organizational leadership. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at 1Q Leadership. I am joined by Kortne Gosha. Kortne is a Deputy Athletics Director at Tulane University. Greetings, Kortne. Thanks for joining us.
How's it going, Ty? This is always a pleasure to get the chance to catch up and talk shop a little bit.
And 100%. I'm happy to be here in New Orleans, finishing up with the Women Leaders Convention, recording some videos, recording some podcasts. Figured I'd come over and touch base, see how you're doing, see what's on your mind these days, right?
Well, it's it's been pretty quiet this week.
It's hilarious.
But no, it's really been good, and a lot of conversation and an opportunity to really collaborate with my peers.
Yeah. Thinking about transition and change. Stranger to change. Troy, of course, athletic director, went off and took the job at Washington. And you've been in a number of places dealing with a number of things and really responsibilities for change itself. You think about the things you're over here now, the facilities, operations, capital projects, and just the title of those is about change, right? Keeping things running and then also bringing new things, investing in new things. Talk to me about your second year here at Tulane. Talk to me about your primary responsibility that you were hired to do and what that has evolved to over the last couple of years.
So it's been interesting, as well. I transitioned from sitting in the chair to coming here and having an opportunity to work for Troy. And my singular focus was really, facilities, events, capital projects.
Right.
And obviously, you sit in the chair long enough, that you've got a variety of things that kind of fall in your lap. And it was good because as an athletics director, we started to speak the same languages. I kind of knew what he was thinking before he said it, and so I started to kind of roll over into the fundraising side of things a little bit. And but really, the primary focus, was really developed towards on-campus relationships,
right.
And building those relationships that we could venture out and build new programming, expand our program, and do some things that hadn't happened here at Tulane for a while.
Yeah. If you wouldn't mind, tell me about something that is new in the last 2 years since you've been here that it probably took a Kortne Gosha to come on campus and create. Right.
Well, I obviously don't necessarily think that it's specifically Kortne Gosha. I think we have a great team, and
Yeah.
I'll take a minute to compliment our team. Our deputy athletic director in SWA, Dr. Charvy Greer, is phenomenal. She makes the student athlete experience here second to none. Jenna Woodson, who's our deputy for external, does a phenomenal job. She is a boss, and she communicates very well, and she pushes us as an administration. And for myself, I think to be able to complement both of them and support them in different categories, as Troy really served on a number of committees. But I think the biggest thing is internally being able to talk and cast the vision around the expansion of our physical infrastructure here on campus. We have a beautiful campus, but we're really tight. And so how we needed to expand that and the collaboration and the things that were required to do that. And so from last year to this year, we've had about $40 million in capital investments that are completed.
Mm-hmm.
And very soon, looking at another $70 million to rock and roll here pretty soon. And so that's kind of been my task, and also fundraising along with developing those plans.
Mm-hmm. What are the relationships on campus that have to be tight to approach somebody and say, look, 70 million, 40 million, this is over $100 million that we want to do to enhance this academic experience for our student athletes and for the people who experience our student athletes, right? So tell me about the relationships on campus that are necessary to make something like that happen.
Well, I think it's a combination of both internal relationships on campus and external stakeholders.
Okay.
Obviously, as we engage some of our external stakeholders, you talk about some of the challenges that you have and the vision for the department and how what it will take to get there. And recently, we closed a 8-figure gift that will be announced pretty soon, and because of that external relationship, now we can kind of focus internally. Hey, we have this is going to move this piece forward, but we need the collaboration and across the board from the president to the chief operating officer of the university, our development team. I meet with, really the collective, those 3 units, their offices on a weekly basis because that's what it requires. And so kind of being a little bit of that in between of all of these units, even though it's not in my title. But again, I think Troy, used that to his advantage and being in the chair and having someone who could also articulate that without it having to come from the athletic director has been great.
I want to ask you something. I've been theorizing on this lately. I'm gonna give you a couple definitions, and I think when you talk about uh, higher education, specifically college athletics, the definitions are multi-layered in terms of who and how they apply. Right. The first one is customer, the individual or group that unlocks value for an organization. Right. Next one is consumer, the individual or group that finds value in the products or services offered by an organization. And the last one is kind of an overlapping middle ground, the individual or group that your product or services provide value to. And if you talk to a lot of athletic directors, they say student athletes are our customer, student athlete experience, purpose of the department is to enhance the academic mission of the institution. But I think there's kind of just weird overlapping kind of this perspective of a student athlete, of a fan, of a donor, of the other students on campus, of the staff in terms of consumer and customer. So I wonder about your thoughts on that. You know what I mean?
So no, it's a really good question, and I firmly believe that Tulane University is the blueprint for intercollegiate athletics,
Okay.
and the way that we do it here. From the first, from my perspective, the value of the Tulane education, there it's second to none. So that value proposition is there. You talk about some of the things that are going on in the landscape of college athletics right now, the transfer portal, NIL. We don't really have those problems here. And it's because, again, the value of the education. Our kids recognize it, their parents recognize it. And so, because of that, we've been able to show stability in our programs. And from a fan perspective, I think last year you've shown me we have the ability to turn it on. The fact that we sold out Ullman Stadium on a couple of occasions last year, a couple of occasions this year. Our students have responded in transformational ways to our programs now. And it's Tulane now is a quote unquote football school, right? And so that piece has been electric. And so when you couple the relationship with student athletes and high level athletics, student engagement, now you look at the community engagement and fans. Our homecoming game is in 2 weeks, and it's literally a total sellout. And so, it's new for our alumni base because I didn't get tickets to the game. It's a place to be now, but that's an expectation now in our program. And so you talk about all ties rise together, and the fact that again those things complement each other very well. But the value proposition's always been here, I think, and it goes back to the educational elements and what we bring to the table there. And now, from an athletics perspective, the student athlete experience is second to none here. But we're competing for championships, not only on the football field. Our sailing program is a national championship caliber program, and some of the things that we've been able to do here in the city of New Orleans. And so we're excited about that. But to your point, the value add, I think we're a unique proposition to that conversation.
Yeah, which is interesting. A student athlete being your customer, right? They provide value to the organization. but they're also customer or consumers of the institution for this education you mentioned, which is second to none. It's a complex thing as a student
It
athlete,
is.
right?
It is, but but it's something our kids don't take lightly.
Okay.
When you really think about it, having a 93% graduation rate at an institution like this, that's really exceptional. When you start to think about the academic rigor placed, we don't schedule classes around practice. We schedule practice around classes here, and which at some places, for coaches, so that's very difficult, and but the culture here is so good, and the people that we've put in place. I'll use Willie Fritz as an example. Um, he has figured it out here, but consecutively, back to back bowls, taking our program from 2-10 to what he did last year and winning a Cotton Bowl. It's in the fabric and the culture and the DNA of what our coaches have now produced in our program, and so the expectations are high across the board. But uh, I think, again, when you get into the value proposition, I think people would look at it in a unique way, because we are a unique institution. We're not like any other. But to be able to come here with a first class education, a student athlete experience is second to none, and to know that when you leave here with a degree, there's an expectation you'll have a championship ring on one hand and a degree in the other.
I'll tell you what I'm thinking as you were talking along the lines of these words that we're using. You talk about the administration, and a quality administration understands that the purpose of an athletic department is to enhance the academic mission of the university. So then you start talking about, hey, we want to move in this direction as a university. Athletics is a part of the way we move, and they will help us move because people see athletics, right? And like I was at Baylor when Baylor turned the corner in terms of athletics, and you see what it does to campus, and you see what it does when you say you wear a Tulane T-shirt and you're in Minnesota somewhere, and people actually recognize what's happening. So I wonder about that relationship to the administration, specifically understanding that balance of customer consumer for student athletes, for students on campus, for fans, for donors, for everybody. You mentioned the big facility projects that you've done here and that are coming down the pike, because that's part of that conversation. Do customer consumer for Tulane. Talk to me about that.
So to your point, you talked about the watershed moments, or the moments where a program turned the curve, and for us, I do believe that it was last season in football in particular, and I say that because for 80 years, there were some challenges that as a program we faced, competitively, and being able to have fan engagement and all of those type things. And we didn't know if we had a fan base, so to speak. And to see, again, for the AAC championship, this place, we rushed the field. I think that may have been the first time that that's happened here, but it was magical. And then to take it to the next level in Dallas, where we had about 35 to 40,000 Tulane fans. And I think it was an aha moment for our entire leadership across campus, that where are we and what just happened. And it's something that obviously it gives us goosebumps, as we think about it today. But it was also an opportunity for them to realize that it's time for us to invest. And as you talk about the investments that you make today prepare you for tomorrow, there's a multitude of things that are going on right now. Conference realignment, we are in that conversation. You talk about providing, again, first class facilities that can attract top talent, from coaches to student athletes, and what parents expect their children to be serviced, and NIL and our collective. I'll talk about our collective. I think that for a group of five, and we're probably leading the way. Last year, our collective during football season, grew by $1 million. And not to necessarily beat our chest, but that's the commitment to the student experience here. And so you talk about that moment, what it did for our department. It really took us to the next level.
You think about the community of New Orleans. You think about institutions such as this that's right in the community. And I don't know the history of Tulane and the community of New Orleans, but there's always opportunities for community outreach. There's always opportunities to be involved. I wonder what your thoughts are on Tulane and the city of New Orleans, and outreach in the community, and potentially a creating new consumers or customers for what the university has to offer.
Absolutely. I think as person that touches the finance side of the house in some aspects. Reaching new consumers is always at the top of mind. We've got to drive revenues. It's important that we get seats, butts and seats. That we have people who enjoy their experience here, that we have premium to offer. Those are things that we're all navigating. But to your point, in a city like New Orleans, we're competing. We're competing with professional sports. We're competing with the entertainment and food propositions that are here in New Orleans. And so, how do we become competitive in that space? And we've looked at that, and we're going to continue to study that and grow that. But it's not our process is not it's either or. We want to be we want to be a part of the community. And in some aspects, we've done a really phenomenal job there. Our student athletes led the country in volunteer hours and community service, which was based right here in New Orleans in our community. And so you name it, we've done it. Our baseball team with St. Michael's Special School, and our football team with Son of a Saint, and you name it. We've done those type of efforts. But I do think, to your point, when you talk about consumers, there is a great opportunity for us to really lean into the city of New Orleans that is a tourist destination. We're part of that destination. And so when a lot of our peers come here and compete, it's a unique, again, value proposition that a lot of people in the country can't offer.
Yeah, and there's an aspect of beyond creating consumers, right? There's an aspect of, we're here in this community, and we need to be here in this community. So talk to me about that beyond the fans in seats aspect of trying to expand and be an asset to the community, I guess. Tell me about your thoughts on that, because I know the work you've done when you were at Middle Tennessee, Miami, at FAMU, that was important to you, right? The community is important, and it was beyond just people sitting in the seats and being fans and that kind of thing. Tell me about that.
Absolutely. I think physically where we are literally nestled in a community. And that means a lot to us, and you see it around our building. There's something, we refer to it as being NOLA built, right? I think being in New Orleans and embracing this community and understanding how it operates, that you have to be resilient. All of our student athletes understand what it means to be resilient. I'll go back to 2 years ago, and this predates me, but this entire department spent 30 days in Birmingham. After a hurricane,
Right.
and
That's when the power was out or something.
yeah, the power was out here in New Orleans for 3 weeks a month, and how they responded to that. No one gave any excuses. They just rolled our sleeves up and go to work. And we talk about some of the things that you know we're limited because of where we are geographically in space, right? We talk about that with our coaches, and sometimes the reason some of these facility projects are so important to us. But our coaches don't complain. They find a way. They roll their sleeves up and really get after it. And I think that's something that we respond to our community. Being in New Orleans, you'll learn that you don't complain about much. You make your way, and that's something that we've really embraced.
There's this aspect of college athletics, and you hear a lot of athletic directors talk about it, is when you move up in responsibilities, title, and authority on the campus in college athletics, you get further and further away from the student athletes. Troy has said it on record. I've talked to you offline that your relationship with the student athletes here couldn't be better. And one thing I learned recently, and I don't know why I never thought about this, maybe because I was a football player, right? Football and basketball, most student athletes on campus are not people of color, right? Because you have way more sports than football and basketball, where are mostly in track, probably where most the students, people of color, are. So to have relationships across the board with a whole lot of student athletes is an asset. So tell me about that, and why that, and how you have done that here, and why that was important to you as you came here at Tulane.
Yeah. So, I would say in these roles in particular, you got to remember your why. And we all got into this industry to support these young people, and to make sure that their experience is phenomenal. For me, that's the best part of the job. You can build everything, you can, be a part of these strategic plans, but the interaction and the time with the students is what I enjoy the most. My sports here in particular are football, baseball, sailing, and the running sports. And when Troy gave me sailing, I kind of looked at him sideways. I'm like, what do you want me to do with that? Right. But to really understand the sport and to understand how they trained, it really challenged me as an administrator. And I enjoyed every second of it. And watching them win a national championship was transformational. You know, in my time with baseball, you know, we made a change at the head coaching position, and first year in baseball, we had some high expectations, but it was a really challenging regular season. You know, a lot of low moments for that program, but to be there and support them through that, and ultimately we ended up where we wanted to be. We won this conference, and when everybody else counted you out and all those type of things, being in the what I call the foxhole with those guys was transformational for me. But you know, I'll never forget my first week on the job. Nick Anderson, he's like, I just wanted to come and introduce myself to you. And I had not met a lot of the kids yet, but he was like, I saw you on the Why Not Us FAMU documentary. You're the guy from FAMU, right? And I was like, yeah, you know, that's me. And he's like, so are you going to get us a vending machine like you did this?
That's hilarious.
You know, but it was, again, those are moments that I've really enjoyed, but I enjoy spending my time with the kids. And I think, you know, one of the things that I learned from Troy in his time here was the fact that, you know, he would go out to practices and he would spend time with the kids. And that's been important. And especially us as administrators, you know, we're fortunate here in particular. Most of our teams practice in the mornings. And so that's one of the first things we do here. Right. And I think you can't lose that. You know, we all get busy. We all have things. But if you lose sight of the student experience, and I fundamentally believe that in some places in our industry, we've lost sight of the student athletes and their experience because we're chasing other things. But I won't go on that soapbox today.
Right.
But at the end of the day, that's my most favorite part of the job
Mm-hmm.
is to get spend time and develop these young people.
Yeah. There's two things I want to touch on before we wrap here. One is about stability, right? In change, if someone could be the center of stability and help people to not be insecure about what could possibly happen, then that is an asset. And you've been around a lot of instability, you've been around a lot of change, and have always been Kortne Gosha, right?
Yeah.
Have always been stable in terms of who you are, not panic, not get too high, not get too low. Tell me about that here, right? I mean, Troy's gone, and who knows, you know, what'll happen in the future. But tell me about trying to be the stability in uncertainty
Yeah.
when you don't have.
Well, you know, at the end of the day, and this is, you know, I tell a lot of people who work in this profession, we get paid to hit the curveball. Don't forget that. And, you know, sometimes you see it coming, sometimes you don't. But do your job. Do your job to the best of your ability. And don't give 99%, give 100%. So I think that's key. You know, our focus to our staff has been do your job. You know, we have a saying around here, and that's going 1-0. We're going 1-0 today, and continue to do that. And you'll be supported and such. You know, administratively, we will support you, but don't lose focus of why we're here. And I think when you know, having sat in the chair before, to your point, you know, I think uh, being maybe 2 months into the job and a global pandemic hits and you know, you've got a lot of things to figure out. You know, I think these things are light work, so to speak, at this point.
Hilarious.
But nevertheless, being who you are, being authentic, um, being a listening ear. People want to be heard at times, and they're looking for you for answers. And I fundamentally believe this in times where there's transition or in times where there may be challenge. If you don't provide leadership, the void will be filled by something. And I fundamentally believe that you know, when you serve as a deputy or as a senior associate or senior administrator, it's your job to fill it with leadership. And so, you know, it may require you to stick around the office a little longer, come in a little earlier, listen to a few more people than you'd like to, but being the calm in the storm. And you know, in transitions, people get nervous, they get anxiety about what that means for me and who's getting this. And this is what I've told everybody: do your job, you know, do your job, and things will take care of themselves. I have total confidence in this university's leadership. And you know, Troy did a phenomenal job, and that chapter is now closed, and we
Right.
will move forward.
Yeah, which is excellent. Last question here, and then we'll wrap. You know, you've heard people say growing up, "Don't judge me, don't judge me," but But realistically, especially if you're in a leadership position, everything is judging. You're evaluating everything, specifically people. And I want to know about your lens of evaluating people, right? You try to operate with the lens of, what are the foundational beliefs I believe in, core values, and you don't want to put your core values off on other people. But if you have 5 core values, 1 or 2 of them are what you expect from others too. So tell me about the lens that you evaluate people with in terms of how you do things. Yeah.
I think the first lens, and this has served me well, that's been transparent. I think you've got to meet people where they are. Everyone has expectations and they may differ, but being transparent about what you're experiencing or your expectations, the vision for what you have, so that people aren't caught blind, so being transparent. And I think too, just having a level of integrity that can't be pierced. Our industry right now it is moving, and it is moving fast, and in some places not in an integral way, right? And so I think that's one of the things that we have to put back in our business in the intercollegiate athletics is the integrity of sport, the integrity of higher education and academics. And I think certain places we've lost sight of that, but we've got to get back to that. And I think it starts with being a leader. Leadership that is not defined by age, race, color, sex, any of that.
Right.
I've always said that. Being the youngest Division I athletic director at the time, you really have to show that because there's an expectation, and be a leader.
Right. Which is excellent. Talk about the integrity of leadership, 100%. Well, Kortne, this has been an excellent conversation. I really appreciate you having me here on campus. I appreciate you joining me on the One Question Leadership Podcast.
Thanks, Ty. Appreciate you being here.
Yes, sir. That was Kortne Gosha. He's the Deputy Athletics Director here at Tulane. And of course, I am Ty Brown with One Question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of the One Question Leadership Podcast is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.